Welcome to the Maker and the Mix podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Lawson, and together with Jeff Gerard, we delve into the fascinating world of concrete. Join us as we share our expertise, explore innovative techniques, and uncover the truth behind high-performance concrete. From the Concrete Countertop Institute, we bring you a podcast rooted in foundational knowledge, integrity, and the pursuit of truth. Let's embark on this concrete journey together. So welcome, everybody.
Yeah. Hey there.
Jeff and I have been, kind of talking already a little bit, but
we got to prime the pump, so to speak.
Yeah.
At least I do.
As you can see, I'm gonna. If you're watching and not listening later,
Caleb got in trouble, and he knows in the dock.
Yeah, I'm in the dock now. I got in a little bit of. We're not gonna call it trouble, but I was in the shop. I've been in the shop recording, obviously, these things. Hopefully you can hear me well. I'm not using my regular mic. I'm using the microphone on my phone.
You sound okay.
Fine. Good. But I was thinking this morning, I was like, my guys can't do any work in my shop if I'm also in there trying to record a podcast and the dog's barking and all this, which the dog doesn't bother me, but so I thought, okay, I'm going to try recording it from home. But also it's summer and my 2 6-year-old boys are very much home. And they're weirdly not awake yet, which is kind of unusual for 8 o'clock on a Wednesday. But I thought, okay, where am I going to record this? I thought the garage. Garage is a great idea. Couldn't find a good outlet. And also it was cold in there because the garage I chose, this is a weird thing, but we have 2 garages. One's in the basement, one's upstairs.
Can I have one?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just move one to your house. And the basement garage is air conditioned, which is a new one for me. But it gets very cold because the thermostat is upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah. And cold air sinks.
So, yeah. And well, not only that, the thermostat's upstairs. And so the AC runs for a while because all the windows are also upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets really cold in the basement. Anyway, on top of that, it's a basement, which is cold anyway. Long story short, there's this lovely little room. I am directly beneath the hot tub. And this is like the room where all of the Christmas decor was stored when my in-laws lived here. For those of you
It's going to become the new studio.
It's going to become the new studio / whiskey room. But my wife and I bought her parents' house, and we're very slowly remodeling it. So I'm in this empty but very nicely quiet room where the water heater lives. The hot tub's above me. You're in a shelf. It's great,
It's great. It works.
So, So, I mean, in the remodel world, I've been learning how to drywall mud. I mean, and I can hang drywall. You can screw a sheet to the wall, but we have like an absolute just ton of 1991 wallpaper in the house.
Apparently, there's a professional trick of when you have a drywall mud in a bucket, you squirt some dish soap in it and add some water, and it makes it creamier. And I've never done it. It's been a long time since I had to do drywall, but that's I saw, I don't know if it was a TikTok or a YouTube, where it's like if you walk into a job site and you see somebody using drywall mud out of a bucket and not doing anything to it, they don't know what they're doing. So
there you go. Right? I don't know what I'm doing. So
yeah.
I mean, I did put it into one of those tray things.
Right.
And I mixed it around first.
I thought you're supposed to put it in a hopper gun.
Yeah.
Spray it all over everywhere.
But what's going on in your world? So I'm in a garage basement closet. You're in your office per usual.
I'm getting ready for another round of testing coming up. Hopefully next week I'll start looking at zooming in and finalizing.
I'm really impressed, by the way, at the organization in there because
yeah. Well,
Well done.
It's been a challenge, but you know how it is. Like I said, doing spring cleaning, organizing things, and just getting rid of clutter and stuff like that. It's refreshing. Years and years ago, let's see, it was 13 years ago when I moved out of one of my shops. Just getting rid of all the crap that had accumulated over the years. Um, yeah, dumpsters
Mhm.
full of stuff. So
Oh, listen, I mean,
old
in your
molds and pieces of concrete that you're like, well, I'll do something with it, or tools that didn't really work, but maybe I'll get around to fixing them or cleaning them.
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
I mean, we did a whole episode on cleaning uh, 8, 10 weeks ago, but it's worth repeating. There were a few things that you didn't need anymore that you gave me,
Hmm.
and in there were a couple of cabinets and obviously some there were some old molds as well, and in trying to find space in my shop, which you don't think about it because I set my shop up just under 3 years ago, which is not that long in the grand scheme of things. And I filled up a dumpster and a half getting my shop cleaned out after 3 years. And that was after having done a big spring cleaning when I moved from Orlando, which was a bigger shop. So I intentionally chose a much smaller shop, which now I definitely don't regret it. But there are some things that I've got kind of in the pipeline that are going to make me want more space. So we'll see where that goes. But
That's always one of those challenges. And when I've been helping people get into this business for it'll push in 20 years, right? 20 years next year. And when you think about your shop, right, it's the single most expensive and valuable tool and asset that you have. It is
mhm,
the place that you do your craft. It is the place
mhm,
where your money comes from. And having something that is too small or too big is just as detrimental as having something that kind of only sort of works.
mhm. Well,
Um,
and I had so I've had this is my third shop. Um, my first shop was pretty open. It was honestly pretty similar in shape and scope and size to what I have now, with the exception of it had two big bay doors and no show space. So it was one big open
mhm,
cube. The downside was it was one of those metal buildings. It was like a metal warehouse
mhm.
in Orlando, Florida, with no tree covering at all. So it was a toaster. I think you came there a couple of times, once or
Yeah,
twice anyway, and I mean in the summer it was like 109 in
it's
there.
hot. Yeah, that's
Um,
brutal.
and I had like one back door, so there was no good way to get flow. I mean, you just had to blow air in from the outside. You couldn't like make it circulate because anyway. And then the second shop was just, I mean, it was much bigger, but it was dreadful in the scope of like making things ergonomic. Like it was long. It had
It was
a
really an
bunch.
awkward shape.
It was really weird. It was a big space, but then it had like a third of it had a floor over it that was not part of my space. So that was really low ceilings. And then like
You had those columns
painting
down the middle.
spaces, a ton of columns, and then it had this back section that was also really low ceilings, and I couldn't get a forklift through the back door, and the pit was back there, so I couldn't drive the forklift over it anyway. Um, it was so. I mean, honestly, I had 4,200 square feet, and I think I could use half of it.
Yeah.
Um,
So if I had to say one thing, and I don't want to like get off into shop design or anything like that, which is a topic of a future podcast, I'm
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
But if I had to say there's one thing or two things that are critically important, and I've been in a lot of people's shops, from brand new shops that I helped set up to shops that have been running for 15, 20 years,
Hmm.
is number one, good organization. So I get, if you for all my students who have been to my shop for class, my toolboxes, the rolling toolboxes that mechanics use, I have several of those. Every drawer is labeled. So if you want to know where the knives are,
Yeah, and I
it's in
did
the
that. Go
drawer
to the
labeled
knife.
knives. Where are the
Mhm.
measuring tapes? They're in the drawer labeled measuring tapes and is written in paint pen on it. So you
Yeah, I
can
took
see it
that
from across the
advice
room.
a couple years ago, and it was really helpful.
And, knowing where things go, where things are, and where things should be makes a huge difference in terms of the amount of time you save just wandering around looking for something. And second is keeping things clean.
Mm-hmm.
So like in your old shop, the last shop you moved out of in Orlando, the shop you inherited,
On the
the
floor
thing that
was
I
horrible.
really lamented was the fact that your floor was so bumpy and
Mm-hmm.
so uneven that it was almost a tripping hazard. And
Mm-hmm.
that was not because you were messy. It was
No, it was a
because
cultured marble shop before me, and it
the
was, I
culture
mean,
showed,
oof.
yeah. And you would have had to like jackhammer the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I've
Had to
been in
bring it up an
shops.
inch.
Yeah, I was in a shop. This was maybe 7, 8 years ago in Reno, Nevada, and it was, a nice, fairly new steel building, had a concrete floor, kind of really nice conditions, and nobody kept anything clean.
Mm.
And there were just piles of concrete. They'd scrape off the forms, and it would just fall on the floor, and there'd be lumps of concrete everywhere. And you had to watch where you were going because otherwise you'd trip. And
Yeah.
it's like, how that's just careless. That's
Well,
the
and one thing on the floor topic, I didn't do this in my shop. I pressure wash a lot and I scrape the floor a lot, and that's worked for me. One thing I will say that Martin Haddock Duckett, he changed his name on Facebook recently. But anyway, he is moving into a new space and he did epoxy on the floor, like a, full on white or, two-part kind of primed and then two-part epoxy on the floor for that exact reason. And I was like, that is smart. I think he's doing his new shop really the right. He's taking a lot of care. And then you've got folks like Patrick Galladay, who coincidentally is, I think, going to restart his podcast,
Mhm. Mhm.
which I'm excited about. I enjoyed that. So it was funny. I think what did he post on all the groups? He's like, "Let me know if you want me to restart it." You know, and my response was, as one of the two options out there, I think you should go for it.
Yeah.
Um, because I really enjoyed. I think the more voices, the better, and I really liked his perspective on it.
Mhm.
Um, and the guests he had on, and the production value. I think he really took the time to produce the podcast, which is great. So I hope that comes back.
I can only imagine how much work that takes. I
Oh
mean, I
yeah,
know how much work it takes to do this, and hey, we're just
and
kind
this
of
is
winging it, right?
this is fairly primitive. I mean, the the platform is better and the audio is better, and we've kind of upgraded a little bit from our previous setup, but um, and I can do things like this, but
Hey, we spare no expense here. Shades of
What?
Jurassic Park.
Oh my gosh, do I have a no? What else is going on in the concrete world that you've been hearing about?
Oh, so I, we, as a lot of people know, CCI is primarily and it has always been an informational, educational company, right? So we're the first truly technically based, and we still are truly the only technically based um, teaching school. Um, I have an engineering background, so strong, legitimate technical foundations. It's not just based on, hey, this is what I learned how to do over the years, and I'm sharing my mistakes and all that. I'm channeling engineering and all that. We've already talked about that. So we also have, over the years, through a need, developed products. So the first product I developed with, it's going on what, 5, 6 years now,
I
was
think seven.
Omega.
think I've been using it
years.
for 7 years.
7 years. Okay, so it's been a while. It's easy to lose track of time, right?
Was that
Is our
26?
Omega concrete countertop sealer, which is a topical sealer, because topical sealers are consistent and proven to work. They don't depend on a whimsical array of concrete chemistries and uh, days of the week or how you hold your feet and all that to maybe work. They always work because the chemistry is fixed. Um, and then I developed Ovation, which is um, it's positioned as a DIY level sealer, but I mean, you have it in your own kitchen, right? And you've
Yeah, I do. It's funny. I did it as an experiment because I'm like,
sure
okay, surely, I mean, I think initially when you told me about it, I thought it was an acrylic, and it's not. It's
it's
a
not. It's a hybrid
it's
urethane.
it's urethane, but
Yeah.
um, it is as easy to apply as an acrylic, which I find very fun. It just, I mean, you can't screw it up. It like you spray it. So if you use Omega, which you should, if you're using any topical, and I am not going to down topicals because I've used every friggin' sealer in the sealer sphere, I think at this point, or close to it. And this is the best one I've found. No sealer is perfect. We're never going to tell you that every sealer is perfect, but I really, really like Omega. That said, when you introduced Ovation, you sent me a quart or whatever, and I was like, well, I'm doing my kitchen, and let's just see how this goes.
Sure, why not?
Um, and because I mean, my uh, my patient wife has dealt with all of my sealer changes over the years because we've pretty much always had concrete in our kitchen. And when Omega first came out, I had just done my kitchen at home in Orlando with I don't remember if it was 327 or RPS.
Mhm.
RPS was Betty Road Sealer.
Yeah.
Reactive something or other. Anyway, and I was less than thrilled, and I hate to say that because but
That's why you
it
try things on yourself.
yeah, we had. I mean, we're really good to our stuff. Like I have a concrete sink in my kitchen, which I don't usually do for clients because they're really wear prone, and I mean, we take care of our stuff. Somebody came into my kitchen 2 days ago, and the countertops in there are 2 years old. Um, and I mean, at this point,
And what
I,
color are they?
oh, they're white.
Yeah, white.
It's white marble, marbled. And I mean, sink looks fine. Now we bleach it because that's how you keep a concrete sink clean.
Right.
Um, and but there's maintenance involved,
Hmm.
right? Um, Now for bathrooms and stuff, that's a totally different story. I happily install bathroom and outdoor kitchen sinks all the time. Love them. Will have them in every room in my house, but I think a kitchen sink ought to be stainless or enamel cast iron or
Something else,
something.
yeah. I agree.
Generally speaking, and it should not be integrated. Mine's integrated, so it's like I do the things you shouldn't do, right? Um, but all of that to say, I am beyond impressed because what I expected was what was that acrylic sealer that you were using as a cheap quick sealer when I took class in 13? That was V. But we
Oh,
sealed that.
TK6. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
anybody uses that anymore.
So you were using TK6. It was an easy to apply
Yeah.
HVLP kind of thing. And that's what I like expected in terms of performance out of this sealer.
Right.
And so, you set the expectations really low,
Right.
honestly. And when I first got it, I did some testing on it, and then this was like a real world test. But when I did the testing on it, I was blown away because I took
Testing on Ovation.
both Omega and Ovation. I
Oh,
took a
okay. Yeah.
4 foot by 2 foot like panel of concrete that I had.
Hmm.
It was like a cutoff or something from a panel. I made a large panel and
Hmm.
made it too big intentionally, cut it down. I had this thing, left over, and I sealed half of it with Ovation, half of it with Omega, and on the Omega half, I did I don't remember it. I have pictures of it somewhere, but it was like 1 prime, 2 finish coats, 2 prime, 3 finish coats, 2 prime, 4 finish coats, right?
Yep.
And the 2 prime, 4 finish coats is what I do as a standard now.
Right.
And then,
That's what we recommend. Yeah.
yeah, and then I did, which coincidentally, 3 prime's really nice, actually. I know it's more sealer, but to me, it makes a difference. But anyway, then I did Ovation, I think 2, 3, and 4 coats. Just as is. You just put it in a spray bottle, dilute it, 2 parts Ovation, 1 part water. Windex
Super
bottles,
fast, super easy.
my favorite, but you spray it and you back roll it and you're done. And I have not found a way to screw it up yet. Like, you can't make it look bad. And I did it, and I waited for it to cure a full week, both. And then I did like stain testing, drew the grid out, and did all the different things for all the different hours and all this stuff. As you would expect, mustard left a stain, and you know, whatever. Omega, easy to clean up, no big deal. The mustard, after 24 hours, left a stain, got it out with bleach, no problem. But there were some stains I couldn't get out of Ovation. Mustard was one of them. And anyway, what was the weirdest thing was I cleaned it, and then I was done with my testing. I'd figured out what happened. You know, I was happy with the results for bathrooms and bird baths, like you've got one in your backyard. And so, you know, my general thought was, okay, I'm going to use Ovation for things that don't need kitchen protection.
Right.
Um,
and that's generally the kind of recommendations we have for professionals, right? For a homeowner doing it themselves, sure, it's
put
going to
an
be
extra
great.
couple coats on it and you'll be
Extra
fine.
couple coats, but for, you know, you're doing a job for somebody who doesn't know what they're getting, it's safer to have something of a higher protection level of protection, because you have to kind of think for them, whereas a homeowner is making that choice and they're more aware.
That said, 2 weeks later, all the stains were gone.
Wow.
And I don't know why. This is very anecdotal, and I'm not sure what happened, because
I'm going to use some language that I was told by somebody else a long time ago, and I think this is all, you know, it's smoke and mirrors kind of talk. It's the stain was pushed out.
No.
Yeah.
By what?
I don't know. Magic.
So it's the magic sealer that unstains itself.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, super thrilled with Ovation. I've got it in my kitchen, and actually at the time I misunderstood the instructions. So I did it 2 parts water to 1 part Ovation.
That's probably why. Yeah.
And that's what I did in my kitchen. And now I did like 7 coats, because I was like, all right, kitchen. But 7 coats of the wrong dilution, so I've really only got 3.5 coats on there, in theory.
And something that I don't want to get again. This is another topic we can really deep dive in another podcast. Is both of my sealers, so Omega and Ovation, they're both urethane based. Omega is a 2-part, and Ovation is a single part, and both use water as a dilutant, but neither depend on the water for curing. The water is there just to make it easy to apply and easy to get a very good finish.
Yeah, and so the humidity doesn't matter.
In fact, drying is an important aspect of this.
Yeah, throw fans on it.
That's why we apply it so thin, and that's why that you can apply another coat very, very quickly, whereas in a lot of other sealers, you have to wait a long time, because moisture is, you want the moisture to go away. So the faster it goes away, the faster you can keep going. And that's all I'm going to say on this.
But yeah, so and you know, we're 2 years into these countertops. You know, we had a party. Lauren got some barbecue for my birthday, and I had a bunch of guys over for a poker night last year. And one of the sauces was a mustard sauce, and it you know, leaked out of a container, and it sat under the container for several hours. And there was a spot, right? And after everybody left, I cleaned it and threw a paper towel with some bleach on it, went to bed, stain gone. and that's the only time it's really stained.
Right.
And it was, it's caught in the sealer. That's what people I think are confused by. It's like, oh, it's stained. I'm like, yeah, in the sealer. It
Right.
protected the concrete, which is its job. Bleach it out, and you're good.
So, I mean, that's the purpose of a sealer, no matter what it is. It's to protect the concrete. And because if a stain gets in the concrete, that game over, right?
Yeah, you got to hone it,
Um,
or
you
it,
gotta hone it, or you gotta whatever, right? It's really, really hard to get out. Here is an interesting anecdotal story that's very current and right on topic. I was talking to Dylan Myers earlier this week.
If you don't follow Dylan, go follow him.
Yeah,
Dylan_Myers_design on Instagram.
crazy guy, amazing, amazing work.
We love him.
So
He's
he had,
a good friend and super talented artisan.
we were talking about how he had been doing this. He does a lot of big commercial work near Baltimore, and near Washington D.C. And he had been doing a lot of work for this one company, and he hadn't really heard from him in a while. And it's like kind of following up on why
Heard
things
this
had
story.
kind of why the work had dried up, even though they were very busy. And long story short, it turns out that he had done like a break room kitchen for one of their
One
places.
of the architects, yeah.
One of the architects, yeah. And the reason why they weren't calling him back was they thought that the concrete was staining, and the reason and that was the reason why they were calling him back, because they were not happy with the performance of the concrete. So he went out there and looked at it, and it turns out they were just doing a really bad job of cleaning
They
it.
weren't cleaning it.
They
So
weren't
he
cleaning
cleaned it with what, a Scotch Brite and some Simple Green, and it was brand new.
something like that, yeah. And I had a customer once a long, long time ago, and this has nothing to do with staining of the concrete, but we had installed countertops, and in the process of seaming it, cleaning things up, there's always a little bit of haze and stuff, because if you're dealing with a fresh caulk joint, you don't want to be like wiping and washing over that fresh joint. It's going to just smear it and make it a mess. So there's going to be a little bit of haze,
So you clean it
and
later.
that's a conversation I had with the homeowner. It's like, hey, tomorrow you can clean these, but don't touch these tonight. All you have to do is, take a paper towel and some Windex, and maybe if it's a little bit more tenacious, you get a nonstick, one of those sponges that have the non-skip scrubby pads are usually blue on them. You can use a little, Windex or your favorite cleaner, and just give it a little bit of mild elbow grease on that in case it's stubborn, right? But it's just something you have to do. And apparently those words went one in one ear and out the other, because we got a call like 3 days later. Hey, my countertops are all stained. There's something wrong with the sealer. Come out and look at it. And they never even bothered to try to clean it. It's like, come on, people.
Yeah.
So like, to me, staining is something permanent, and you have to put a lot of work to undo it. And if something like a tea stain, or say mustard stain, it discolors the surface. Now, the thing about the yellow mustard that makes it very, very tough and tenacious is the turmeric in it. And
Yeah, and I want to interject because, I think there's a lot of misconception out there of, you know, I've seen a lot of this, right? Well, everything's amazing because my sealer beats water.
so what?
And I don't know that that's put mustard on it, please. Like, put mustard on it, and
Put
then,
vinegar. Well,
because
mustard has vinegar. Put vinegar on something too.
it's just not, that's not an adequate stain test.
Yeah.
It's just not.
No.
It's not an adequate protection test. That is anecdotal. It makes you feel better, but I could put wax on it and it would do the same thing.
Yeah. And a simple test with wax shows that that's a very, very small speed bump. It doesn't
By
stop anything.
that logic, right? I could go get some Scotch Brite, or what is that? Scotch Guard in a can, just spray my concrete and we'd be good.
I've tested that repellent stuff. Doesn't work. Work mean it keeps the concrete from getting damaged or stained from things like acid, because most food is acidic, especially things like mustard and tea and wine and pickles and
Lemons.
citrus as
Yeah.
acid, right?
Yeah.
Acids are very damaging to concrete, and that's not a stain. That's chemical damage. That's
right.
no
And
different than
so,
taking a hammer and chisel to your concrete, except you're
right.
doing it
And so I
chemically.
think when we say, does it, because we're trying to define the word work here, we're saying this sealer, and Ovation has done this in my kitchen. Omega obviously is a phenomenal
Mhm.
protectant. Um, but the mustard discolored the Ovation.
Yeah,
It did not, however, discolor the concrete.
right,
The concrete was protected. The sealer is what I bleached, not
right.
the concrete, the sealer.
Yeah, the sealer kept the anything bad from touching the concrete,
Which is
and
its job. So it's doing its job.
it's doing its job. So turmeric is very yellow. If you've ever made anything with turmeric, like a curry or whatever, and you use like a plastic spatula or spoon or whatever, it stains plastic, right? It stains everything. It stains
Oh yeah.
wood. It stains plastic. The only thing it doesn't stain is stainless steel and ceramic or glass, which are all basically non-porous.
But it would
Um,
stain granite. It would stain
Sure, it'll stain
stone.
granite. It'll get into the and the thing is, it doesn't necessarily penetrate very deeply in some sealers, like in Omega Novation. What's happened is it gets into the surface and it sticks to the surface. So just wiping it with a cloth and a common cleaner does not release it, doesn't get rid of it. It's like trying to clean a pan that's all greasy and only using water. That doesn't get rid of it.
Mm.
The grease and the oil is stuck to the pan. So you need to use something a little more aggressive. Common household bleach, right? So one of the things when I'm developing sealers, I test is how does it stand up to straight bleach? Because that's a common way of getting rid of stains. Red wine stains, grape juice stains, uh, blueberry stains, mustard stains, tea stains, organic stains. Stains are discoloration. And if you can just use household bleach, put it on a sponge, put it on a paper towel, let it sit there for a few minutes, let it sit there overnight. It's not going to hurt the sealer. It'll get
Mm-hmm.
rid of it. So that's
Yeah,
what
and
you're,
I
yeah,
think too, there's a lot of what we say to people we're training or advising or whatever is, set the expectation, right?
right.
Which absolutely. Um, but that to me only goes so far, right? Because I could give them bare concrete and set the expectation. This is gonna stain like crazy, and we'll call it a patina. And it's like if I put copper countertops in somebody's house, which would be really cool, actually, it's going to oxidize. It will be green at
I've
some
had them.
point.
I made them. Yes, they will.
There, it will be green, and you just need to understand that and be okay with that and whatever. I personally, as an artisan, am not okay with that for my kitchen countertops. Like
Right.
copper, honestly, I actually think I could be cool with the patina. Um, but I don't know that I would want to live with I mean, it's
The
like having tile countertops, right?
I've
You
had
don't
those.
seal
They're
the grout.
terrible.
Yeah, they're terrible. You don't seal the grout, and then the grout gets real gross. And you could put a penetrating sealer on it, I suppose, but it would still get real gross. I mean, you think about the penetrating sealers you put in your showers, and they still get really gross.
Like, yeah,
And so I personally would not I want a protective layer on top of. Now, I don't want it to look like plastic. I don't want it to look like
right.
epoxy. I want it to look and feel like concrete,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the advantages of Omega Innovation is they still look and feel like concrete.
Because they're so thin.
Um,
Yeah.
so I'm a big fan of topical sealers for that reason. It's like I want
Mm-hmm.
the actual protection. I want to be able to say and feel and understand and live with it's not going to stain within reason. And I want to be able to tell that to my clients. It's like, look, if it does X, Y, or Z, here's what you do, not you've ruined your concrete.
Right.
So, uh, set the expectations, but I would hate to have to give a client, something they paid $170 a square foot for and then be like, well, don't look at it because it'll stain.
Right.
You know,
And
or
here's something else. And many years ago, I wrote an article on this, and I think it's somewhere on the CCI website. It was called my Sealer Epiphany, and about who takes responsibility for protecting your concrete. So there's kind of like two broad schools of thought. The school of thought that we're very firmly in, is we as manufacturers of this product. So we make the concrete, we choose the sealer we're going to use, and I'm even higher than that because I'm making the sealer to do what I want it to do. But that's neither here nor there. You know, we're making a choice.
holier than thou.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
No, I just have another layer of responsibility. How's that?
Yeah.
That
No,
way.
I
So
know. I'm giving you a hard time.
I'm making I'm making the concrete. I'm choosing the sealer that I'm going to be sealing it with, and by doing that, what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm setting the expectations of what this can do, what it can stand up to, what it will resist, and how it is going to be maintained. And the choice I make is passed on to the customer, and it's my responsibility to let them know, hey, this is how you take care of it, this is what you have to worry about, or this is what you don't have to worry about.
And these are the expectations regardless of what sealer you're choosing to use.
Exactly. So
we're not going to browbeat you into choosing Omega Innovation, but
as somebody who chooses a high performance coating, because there is a vast industry that has very deep roots. Look at the auto industry. How many cars don't have paint on them? I can only think of one.
DeLorean.
And it doesn't exist anymore because it was too expensive, and it only came in one color. And don't touch it because it'll scratch and then it'll look awful. And you can't do anything about it because it's super expensive. And oh, by the way, stainless steel can rust. So
I would still drive a DeLorean though, if we're honest.
Yeah. Even though it was a crap, everything underneath the skin wasn't that great. Like,
yeah, but they looked really cool.
It looked really cool. Yeah, it looked really cool, right? So, but it's all flash and no substance kind of thing.
I don't think it can get to 88 miles an hour.
Probably not. No, I think in the movie they had to fake it because it couldn't actually do it.
Yeah.
So we as manufacturers choosing high performance coating are basically saying to our customers, we're doing all the thinking for you. All you have to do is comply with our expectations and our rules. The flip side is going with the natural feel of concrete. So I'm making my product to appeal to my personal choices and feelings about how I want the concrete to feel. So I want my customers to touch bare concrete, or what I pretend to think is bare concrete. And I'm going to be using some sort of penetrating sauce that I smear all over the concrete and hope it actually does something. And common testing shows that 99% of the things that are out there fail.
Maybe you found the 1%. That's great. But
so, you know, put straight vinegar on it and let's see what happens. And in 15 minutes, or after an hour, or after 8 hours, or after 24 hours, if everybody does that, what's actually happening? You know, is it actually protecting it? Because that could happen, right? And that puts, is there anything wrong with doing that? No, it's not. I mean, you could do that. You could give, like you said, you could give your customers absolutely bare concrete, but now it puts 100% of the responsibility on them, which is not unreasonable, right? But here's something that I don't.
Well, if you're going to do something like that, you cannot warranty very much,
because all the responsibilities on the customer. But
right.
Here's where choices as a manufacturer really start to affect me and the industry as a whole. So if you start making choices based on your personal feelings as a manufacturer, ignoring the needs of the customer, that's rather short-sighted, because I could have the perfect customer, right? I could have a customer that says, I want my concrete to acquire a patina. I want to feel bare concrete. I want to feel, I want to have it live, right? I want that living finish, which is just a way of saying it's going to change and oxidize and stain. Great. And they're happy with it. Okay, but this is human psychology. So you and your customer have this relationship that is
My children are awake now. They're
at
knocking.
a certain level, right? And then it's fairly short-lived. It really your relationship with your customer only lasts as long as the project. And then
Mm,
when the project's done, they kind of forget about you. Now, customer has this beautiful concrete that maybe has a sealer that doesn't perform very well or doesn't or stains or whatever, and they've kind of lived with it and they're happy because they made the choice and you gave them what they wanted. And then they have this big party and their best friends come over, and their best friends don't know anything about concrete. All they know is that they just redid their kitchen. They're all excited to see it. And they walk in, and the first thing they see is a tea stain or a mustard stain or an etch mark or something. And the homeowner's like, happy. Look at these beautiful things. And their customers, they're their friends, they're good friends, or their family, maybe their sister, maybe their mother, maybe their father, maybe their brother, maybe their cousin. Their peers come in and say, you paid how much for that? And it's staining? And all of a
mhm,
sudden their attitude changes like that,
mhm.
right? That's human psychology. And now what was this wonderful asset now becomes this huge liability. And they're going to turn and come back at you and say, hey, my concrete's staining. Fix it.
Mhm.
But you're like, but you wanted that,
Yeah,
right?
I actually had an experience, and I was much earlier, much younger, much more naive, and if this other artisan is listening, I won't name them, but they'll know who I'm talking about. And I got a call from somebody down in Florida, and they were like, my concrete stains, I can't get a hold of the artisan. And I was like, this is weird because the artisan I know of and I really respect their work. Um, and so anyway, I encouraged the homeowner to get back in touch with the artisan, and they tried, or they say they tried. And blah blah blah. Long story short, I gave them a price to refinish it was bathroom vanity and the bathtub and the shower, and I told them, I said, now I cannot guarantee that I will get the stains out.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you that I can protect you going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I repeated, I mean, that was in the language of the contract, that was in my emails, that was in my text messages. I was very adamant, like, I cannot necessarily get everything out. I can protect you going forward. So that was the expectation I set. And I got down there, and sure enough, it was all stained, and it didn't look like there was a sealer on it at all. And so I asked her a little bit about it, and she was like, "Well, it was tongue oil." And I thought, well, that's kind of a weird,
Bad choice. Don't do
whatever.
that.
So anyway, in place kind of sanded it and got it ready for a sealer, and I put a new sealer on it, and I was like, you're protected going forward. Now, she wasn't super happy because her expectation was not the one I set, which was annoying, but here we are. I could probably pull up text messages and emails and find 8 instances where I said, I can protect you going forward. That was my like phrase of choice. And I said that to her right after I sealed it, before she looked at it. I said that to her before I got there. I said that to her in an email. I said that to her in a contract. I can protect you going forward. I can't do anything else necessarily. And anyway, so I leave, and I finally got in touch with I finally decided to get in touch with the other artisan. And I was like, can you give me a little background here? And his response was, yeah, she begged me for a tongue oil finish. She did not want a sealer. She wanted it to live, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't warranty it because she chose that. And so really it was actually on her. And
Mm-hmm.
I made the mistake of trying to fix something that I should not have gotten involved in at all.
Right.
Um, and so it's just, if you as an artisan are going to choose a finish or a lack thereof because you like the way that it looks and feels to you when the concrete is new, please think about 5 or 7 or 10 years down the line. Because, and I think no matter how hard somebody begged me now back then,
Yeah.
I surely would have made that mistake too. I mean, none of us are immune, right? I've made so many mistakes. Like none of us are immune to mistakes, and I guarantee you that's one I would have made had I not had that experience.
Right.
And I'm sure that this other guy has not made that choice again for the same reason. I mean, it's a headache. And so we ended up getting into a sealer talk, which I didn't really intend to, but it happens.
It
Uh,
happens.
um, you
But
know,
this is another facet of the larger topic we're diving into. We started last week, we're going to continue on, is the nuances of this industry of and the sort of and this is sort of one of these minefields of picking and choosing bits of information and ideas without having greater context of or a greater understanding of things. We were before we started recording this, we were chatting about some of the things we're going to talk about, and I had mentioned how, and I've done this too. Like everybody does it. You did it, and you're going to give me an example, and I've done it too. Is let's say I got to fix something on my car, and like I grew up fixing cars, so I have lots of tools and things like that. So I have the tools and I have basic knowledge of stuff. I even have
you have a Haynes manual in there somewhere?
no, I have the service manual, right?
Oh, that's the
Right.
big
All
boy.
like 800 pages of it. And but there are things that it doesn't necessarily talk about. So it's like, hey, I needed to change um I needed to change the oxygen sensors. And it's not like I don't know what they are and I don't, the manual tells me that, but what's the best way to get to them, because I don't want to have to take the rear bumper off. It's a pain in the butt, and maybe there's some tips. So I went onto YouTube, and sure, it's like, okay, if you do this and use these combinations of extensions, you can get up there and it's easy, and that's not covered in the book, right? So I used YouTube, for instance, as a way of solving a very specific problem.
Mm-hmm.
But
But YouTube is not necessarily generally meant to solve general problems.
right, right. It doesn't assume that I have the tools, know how to use them, or anything peripheral to that, like uh, how do I even know I need to change the oxygen sensors or anything like that?
You got to get there
And
first, right? So
there's a lot. There's a whole galaxy of information that I need to have an awareness of and a certain level of expertise to be able to even get to the point where I'm going to decide, hey, I'm going to do this myself and I'm going to be successful at it. Now, in a situation where somebody's trying to say getting into into concrete, making things out of concrete, and because we sell products, we sell sealers, as I mentioned before. We have our line of alpha products, which we're expanding, and like our alpha fluidizer, for instance, it's the most powerful.
oh my gosh.
TBP. We'll use these letters because I guess letters are important, right? The most, or TMP, the most powerful plasticizer on the market compared to all the other ones, even with letters on them that I've checked. It's more powerful than that. Very, very huge seller, right? And so we get a lot of people.
It is
it is a 20-pound sledgehammer. And if that's what it's for, like you want to make fluid concrete, you want to make self-consolidated concrete, it is the tool to use. So I've gotten a few emails recently. Kim, our customer service person, who, if you ever call us, she's the one you talk to. She'll get these emails and she'll forward them to me, and she's like, man, we've got a couple of these people are very abrasive and defensive. And they're like, why are they being basically rude? And it's because they're like, well, I want to buy your product, but I want you to tell me how much to use.
It's like you
And it's
cannot
like, well,
do that.
in the description right there, it says, here's a suggested starting point, but we can't tell you exactly what you need to use because we don't know anything about your mix. You're going to have to do trial batches. And do people not read?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen,
And this is a very isolated. These are a couple isolated cases here. A lot of people have very, very good success with
oh, I
using
love
things.
this
It's
stuff.
like,
But I did have to do experimentation first.
right, but it's
Uh,
no different than say I want to make a color. Like I want to make the color. Uh, Here I am pointing behind that chair, which under white light is sort of it's a. This is going to sound really weird. It's a warm orangey cranberry red. That's a Aero Saarinen chair. Uh, that's interesting fabric, it's original fabric, and it's a really cool red. Now, if I wanted to make that color out of concrete, I need to understand
color theory.
color theory. I need to understand what pigments are available, how to blend them, dosing, and things like that. And even with that general sense of understanding,
You
I
still have to
actually
know
have to start
ingenuity to
making
do what color
samples and
flows, right?
trying it, right? So this whole like topic of learning how to master your material and learning how to be successful with things often comes down to, hey, I got to just make some concrete. I got to see
Yeah, I
what.
think there's a big assumption in a lot of industries, but this one is not exempt, that, you know, if I go and buy the best X, Y, or Z, as purported by the manufacturer, um, and again, we're not exempt to that either. I think Omega, we think Omega's the best. Jeff's the manufacturer. So, there's some bias there. I have I mean, I've been using Omega longer than anybody else in the industry as a production sealer.
Mhm.
Um, and I love it. So, there's experience there that informs my opinion. But, you know, if you go and buy the best X and then expect that it will work because you bought it and not, that I think that the manufacturers are assuming a certain level of understanding pre-purchase. And so, if you as a complete novice go and buy the perfect concrete countertop mix, whatever that might be, but you don't know how to mix colors. You don't know what the pigments are. I mean, you're trying to make fire engine red with red oxide. That will not work.
Yeah.
Why not?
I could
It's
go
red.
buy a $10,000 digital camera because
Right.
it's the best
That
or
doesn't
the
make you a
best that's in the
photographer.
store. That doesn't make me a good photographer. It means I have a very expensive camera that probably doesn't make pictures any better than what my phone can do because I
It's
don't
like
know how
I
to
can
use
go
it.
buy a, $1.4 million Bugatti
Yeah.
as for my 14-year-old. I don't have a 14-year-old, but it's like for my teenager and expect them to drive.
Yeah.
No, that's not how that works. Just because I bought the best of something doesn't mean, and it may or may not be the best. I think it's worth testing yourself. That's one thing we've said throughout this podcast, throughout Jeff's career, in my comings and goings as since I've been an instructor at the CCI, I've said this may be the best. Test all of them, right?
Hmm.
Our modus operandi is test your stuff, whether you think it's the best or not. Like, put it up against something else. I think there's something that this culture lately has lacked. It's like debates aren't a thing. Testing isn't a thing. It's like I want to put what I believe to be the best, whether it's product or argument or whatever, up against what somebody else believes to be the best product or argument or whatever, and see what actually stands up, because that's how you get informed. And to me, if something else stands up better, I'll change my opinion. But I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to and a lot of people just want to be told what's going to work, and sometimes we can't tell you that. It's like what plasticizer dose or fluidizer dose is going to give you self-consolidating
I don't
concrete.
know
Well,
what
okay.
concrete mix you're using. I
What,
don't
yeah,
know what
what,
water cement ratio you're
yeah,
using.
what's your water cement ratio? How much pozzolana are you using if you're using Portland? How, what do you want
Are
it
you
to look
vibrating
like?
the concrete or not? How
And
are you
and what's
casting it?
your mixer? Are you using a single head column mix? Are you using a single head Harbor Freight mixer? Are you using a double head column mix? Are you using
Nymer vertical
vertical
shaft
shaft
mixer.
mixer, or are you using Rimcraft? Like all of these things make a difference in how your plasticizer disperses and works. Um, and so, you know, longer periods of mixing with an arm, you all right, with an Eimer vertical shaft mixer is going to let the concrete aerate out, degas a little bit more. So you're going to get more self-consolidating, but you need high shear for GFRC. And so like there's a lot of things that you've got to know that you wouldn't know if you don't know them.
Well, you, I
You
think I
don't want
mentioned
you
this
don't know what you don't
early
know.
on. You know what you know what you don't know, but you have
You
no
don't know
clue of
what
what
you
you
don't know.
don't know, and it's that vast, dark universe of unknown that's where success is, right? That's the more you push that veil of unknown
Away.
away from you, and if you don't know that it even exists, you can't go and learn on your own. That's why it's so important to go learn from somebody who's more experienced and who has greater knowledge.
I heard somebody recently say that you need two very important relationships in your life. You need a mentor and a mentee relationship
Mm-hmm.
because you need to when you teach, you learn more, I think. And then when you are mentored, if when you are a mentee, you are humbled.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think everybody needs both.
Absolutely.
You need somebody who is mentoring you, and you need somebody to mentor. And so that's one of the reasons I accepted the invitation when Jeff said, "Hey, can you come work with me on these classes?" Because I recognized my own need to gain more experience and knowledge, um, while, you know, aiming to help other people
Right.
in my craft and my trade. So,
And
um,
here's the challenge for me, right? I've been doing this for a long, long time, and I don't want to say there's nobody, because that would be arrogant and absolutely incorrect. There's nobody that I can learn from because I learn from a lot of people. But I have to now look outside of this industry uh, to other professions for deeper aspects, like when we did at the Legends class in May uh, last month. Um, the big project that we did was post tensioning,
it's
and
uh, it's
that was
Instagram's favorite table right now.
right. Is it now?
Listen, have you seen um, I think the video of that table is up to 100,000 views.
Great, great. That's
It's
fantastic.
Instagram's favorite.
So, you know, again, not to get off on the topic, but like post tensioning is certainly not a topic that's new in the civil engineering world. It's right now. It's
It seems
probably
relatively mysterious in our little niche, though.
right, but again, it's not new, and there are a handful of people who have taught it, and a bunch of people who do it. And I have resisted talking about it and teaching it mainly for two reasons. One, I didn't fully understand how to analyze it from a structural standpoint. And I'm not satisfied of just going seat of the pants. Hey, I'm going to go to Home Depot and buy some threaded rod, stick it in a plastic pipe, and tighten some nuts and hope for the best. Because that's not how you do things, and that's certainly not how you can teach somebody. That's just winging it and faking it. So I wanted to really understand, how is it done in the real world? Like, how is it done for buildings? So I used to live in, Lena and I lived in a building that was made out of concrete. It had post tension concrete floors. That's how a lot of concrete buildings are done. And I ordered a textbook from a very, very well respected university in California, written by the son of one of the guys who learned from the engineer who developed it, T.Y. Lin. He developed the modern way of analyzing post tension concrete. So I went as close to the source as I could. And I had to teach myself how to do this because I didn't learn this in school. It was an advanced topic, and I changed my, reinforced concrete was very much something I was interested in, but it wasn't not what I have my master's degree in. So I never got to that aspect of it, that facet of it. So it was an avenue that was new to me and unknown. And because I'm not unknown, if I'm not comfortable if I don't understand it, I'm not going to teach somebody about it. And I'm certainly not going to pretend I know about it because I've done it 16 times. That's
Well,
not.
and I will say, as you know, I've worked with you for 7 years now, and I mean, we started planning that table 6 months before we made it. I mean, so you really did a deep dive on, and I mean, to the calculator, I'm sure you've got like the calculator that you developed for it, you know, because people are like, well, 2.5 turns is not, it's like, doesn't it, that's not a number. It's like, well, it does correspond to a specific amount of torque.
Yeah. And
Um,
if we didn't publish the lecture I gave what seemed like 20 minutes, but it was probably like 45 minutes or so.
it was an hour.
An hour-long lecture of how, the high-level stuff of why I configured it the way I configured it, which is not the way everybody else does it, because that's not how it's done in the real world. And then why we turned the nuts the number of times, and I did the math using the modulus of elasticity of the steel and the thread pitch and the length and all that. So when you take away, and this kind of gets at the heart of what I'm getting at, is when you take away all the deep background stuff that leads up to a particular process or decision or step that you take, and you only say the end result. And the end result of this is, yes, we're going to turn that nut 3 turns or 2.5 turns, and you don't say anything else. It's easy to misconstrue. Well, how did you get there? Are you just making that up? And without the understanding of knowing, well, I need to stretch this rod so many inches because that's going to give me develop the stress in that rod to give me the predicted upload that this configuration does. I'm being vague here and not being very specific on purpose because it would just take too long to explain. If you only say turn it 2 times, well, there's no context.
It's like that doesn't apply to everything, and so
it doesn't apply to everything. It's specific to this exact project and no other project. You can't apply that as a general wave your hands. That's how you do it, and that extends to things like your super plasticizer. I can't tell somebody, look, always use a 0.5% dose, or always use 2 tablespoons. If you measure things in tablespoons, which you shouldn't be doing, but some people do, because I don't know what you're putting it in and what you're trying to get out of it. Like if you say, okay, I like to use props. Let's pretend this is a pigment. I've never used it before. It's Acme concrete pigment, and it's this magic clear pigment, right? And I've never used it before, and the manufacturer says, use this amount. Okay.
what?
For what? What am I going to get out of it? The only way I know what that amount is going to do is to make the concrete and look at it. Well, what if it's too much? Then I need to use less. Well, how much less do I use? I don't know until I do it, right? I can guess. Maybe I'm going to do half as much, or maybe I'm going to use 1/5 as much. But I won't know what that color is going to be until I make it. So that's an important thing. That's part of that investigation, closing the loop of, you have a set of instructions that are guidance, but that guidance is based on knowing what you're supposed to do and getting results that mean something. So I wanted to kind of touch back on, we were talking.
Well, okay, so in a roundabout way, we're basically saying, look, that's the whole reason that you founded the Concrete Countertop Institute, was you wanted to teach people how to fish rather than just giving them a fish and
Yeah.
saying, because it's like if you just put a hook in the water, you're not going to get anything. You have to know what kind of bait for the type of fish that you're trying to catch in the weather conditions, and
Hmm.
you have to know where to fish to get the type of fish. You can't
Yeah.
go, get mahi in a river,
Just
right?
because you have a
Uh,
pole in a body of water doesn't mean you're going to catch anything.
right. So it's like we're trying to illustrate to anybody listening, it's like we want you to be successful. We understand that there are a lot of gray areas. I mean, you mentioned Dylan Myers earlier. He does a lot of things that are artsy and
Rule breaky.
yeah, I mean his whole thing is uh learn the rules, be an expert in the rules so you can break them like an artist or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, but you got to know them first. And so I think again, Patrick Galladay, his podcast is called the Craftsman Collective. So hopefully that comes back and go listen to it. But he has a lot of techniques that break rules too, and I think that that's great, provided you know the rules, and he does. Um, and
And there's a
so,
flip side to that too, is if you say, well, I don't have the time or it's too expensive to learn or to be taught. I'm going to kind of do this on my own. I'm going to cherry pick
what you actually
these,
spend to learn, though, I
pearls of
mean,
wisdom here and there to help me get through my project. If you kind of follow that process of having very spotty knowledge and then saying, well, I'm just going to buy or rely on a product where somebody has thought for me and I don't have to think because it's all in the bag, right? The the Sure, you can do what that product lets you do,
right.
but you don't know how to solve problems. You don't know how to diagnose challenges. And what if you're asked or tasked to do something that's outside of the scope that that material, that product will let you do? Well, now you're left to wing it. And sure, this is the realm of hobbyists, and a
Mhm.
lot of this industry, having been in this for close to 25 years now, a lot of the people are approached as a hobby. They tinker, they play, things are changing all the time, and that's all well and good, right? But CCI is business oriented first. So when we say we want you to be successful, it's not about just having a piece of concrete that you're happy with. It's being able to support your family and run a business and be profitable, and knowing how to set expectations and have a good contract and deal with how do you handle conflict, how do you handle issues, how do you prevent them in the first place. So it's a much broader scope than just here's how you cast an X or a Y or a Z, or this is how you make a certain kind of thing or a certain kind of concrete or a certain kind of finish. That's very tactical. That's very superficial, because those are things that are done to a piece of concrete or a project. Those are not going to necessarily make you a better business person or a manufacturer. And it's
Mhm.
it's the larger universe of all the knowledge and experience that go into running a shop and running a business with employees and all that makes you successful.
Yeah.
It's not just what mix do I buy or what sealer do I use. Now, those are important aspects of it,
Yeah.
because you choose the wrong product or the wrong sealer or the wrong pigment at your peril.
Oh, I hear a
But
child.
those not are not necessarily guarantees of success.
Yeah, exactly. And
Oh,
welcome to, come meet my children.
it's
You've met them, but
yes.
the audience hasn't. Hello. Can you say hi? Say
Hey
hi to
boys,
say hi to Mr. Jeff.
you're famous. You're on the
Yeah,
internet.
you're on the internet now. This is like a YouTube. This is going to be on YouTube. Don't you always haven't you always wanted to be on YouTube?
Yeah.
Talk to YouTube. Can you say hi? Yes.
Yeah. In 10 years, when you see this, guys, you're going to be so embarrassed.
Oh, it's my Jeep bracelet.
Yes, I mind you.
Oh my goodness. Hey, have fun with Nana today, okay?
Okay.
I
Bye,
love
guys.
you. Give me.
I love you,
Love you.
Dad.
I love you. Have a good day, okay? Bye bye, and I love you. All right. I love you. Say bye bye to Mr. Jeff.
Got that covered.
I know. All right.
Are you happy with
So happy.
and it's a shawl.
Yep. All right.
Sasa.
I love you. I love you. Have a good day. Bye bye, and I love you.
Well, we're beyond an hour, and we really haven't even talked about kind of what we were planning on, but that's okay. We can touch on that next week.
Conversation, and we want that. I think that's
We're conversating.
We are conversating.
We're conversating.
Yeah. So next week we will loosely probably talk about getting not really, because I feel like we've done like a deep dive into concrete mix designs, but I think a deeper like exploration of something to that effect.
You know, there's still a lot of misconception, and I even get this from people who come to class and have kind of already read up on stuff. What do some of the ingredients do, or how do things work together? And it's
well, and one thing I would encourage anybody listening, you know, come to class first of all, you know, because we got August 7th through 11th. We've got December 4th through 8th. We've got November 9th and 10th. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this for a career, so maybe I don't need to come. And I think that's, you know, if you're a general contractor and you get asked for it a lot and you don't have somebody in your area and you want to, you know, be able to provide that to your clients, well, come yourself or send a superintendent or project manager, or maybe you're a homeowner, but you're really intent on doing things the right way. Honestly, the price of the class is going to be less than you would have paid for all the countertops by a large margin. So it's going to be worth your time there because you're going to have to live with it. So it's like, you don't have to be somebody doing this as a career to come to class. You know, and
I'm going to throw out a challenge. I'm going to throw out a challenge here. Every single designer, architect, whoever, who is interested in using concrete, come to class, learn how it is, because I guarantee you what you think it is and how it's made isn't the way it really is done.
Well, and it'll open your eyes too. I mean, you think about, you know, designers and architects have to do a lot of continuing education, right? So if you're an architect or you're a designer and you want to spec something like this, which you should because it's awesome, come and recognize that, you know, it's not just countertops. Like, we're the Concrete Countertop Institute because that's what it was, you know, when you founded the company. But like, we're talking, you know, if you're a commercial, whoever, FF&E, we're talking about, you know, little lampshades. We're talking
about concrete. Yeah. Right. It's an eighth of an inch thick.
I've, you know, I just did plaques. I've done medallions. I mean, we're doing bathtubs and range hoods and all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah.
That you know, falls under the category of, I don't know, let's figure it out. Let's make something crazy. Let's make something awesome. So even if it's just, you know, a continuing education of learn more about the things you're speccing and learn how to do it yourself if you want to, but learn how to set the expectations for your clients so that, you know, whether you're doing it or you found a talented artisan, you know, you can kind of help field those questions. So I think it's an incredibly valuable resource for anybody. How
can you design something when you don't understand what the material is or how it works or how it's made? So,
yeah. So I think that challenge is excellent. Yeah. Come on to class, all you architects, designers, builders. You know, we want to get to know you and you know, want you to be able to spec something and build something and use something that you understand really, really well. You know, it's like, I like to work on cars, you know, like you. I grew up working on cars. So I've got an old CJ7 out there in the garage, and, you know, there was a puddle under it one day, and it took. I smelled the fluid. I knew it wasn't oil. I knew it wasn't water. I knew it wasn't X, Y, or Z. It was power steering fluid. And how do I know that? Because I have a base knowledge of understanding how the motor functions. So all of that to say, we've given you a lot of analogies this week. We've got an hour and 14 minutes plus our time pre-recording. But yeah, we're out there to help. We're recording this to help. We're spending our time doing this to help. We want you to be successful. So thanks for joining the Maker in the Mix podcast as we went over an hour.
It's all right.
And yeah.
Well, we want to hear from you guys too. Like, obviously this is not a, it could be, you could be on, you could join us. But send us some feedback.
Yeah,
absolutely. Tell us some of the challenges you're faced with. Tell us some war stories, positive, happy things we can share with folks. Tell us some, hair-pulling frustrations.
Yeah, and we've got, I know we've got at least one guest planned. We're waiting on some availability from him. So excited to have him on. So we'll plug that soon. But so we've talked about Ovation. We talked about Omega. One thing I failed to mention: Ovation can be used to augment the color of the countertop, so it does not enhance the color. So if you want to use it as a primer under Omega, do that. And if you've gotten this far, you'll get a tip. I just discovered a new way of priming Omega, and I'm going to do a video on it at some point soon. But discovered that you can prime Omega the same way that you do the finish coat, which is just in a spray bottle and back roll. So I will give more details on that in a blog post or another podcast or a video of some kind. So be looking out for that. So if you made it this far, there's your tip.
See, it's important to stick around all the way to the end because that's where all the good stuff is.
That's right. All right, Jeff. Well, I will chat with you later. I'm going to throw the outro up here, so don't leave quite yet. But look forward to next week's podcast. And thank you all for listening. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening to the Maker in the Mix podcast. If you liked the content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe. Feel free to follow us on YouTube as well as Instagram, Facebook, and check out the website, www.concretecountertopinstitute.com. And of course, we'd love to see you at one of our upcoming classes. Tune in next week for more informative content. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Maker in the Mix podcast. If you liked the content and want to hear more, please like and subscribe. Feel free to follow us on YouTube as well as Instagram, Facebook, and check out the website, www.concretecountertopinstitute.com. And of course, we'd love to see you at one of our upcoming classes. Tune in next week for more informative content. Thanks.